Welcome to Lawyer Business Advantage.
Welcome to Lawyer Boss Life, the podcast where law firm owners learn to build profitable businesses and lead lives they love. I'm Chelsea, a law firm owner, entrepreneur, and toddler mom. I know it's possible to have an excellent income, work 40 hours a week or less, and still take time off because that's what I do.
And I'm Alay, law firm growth expert and founder of Law Firm Success Group. I've helped hundreds of attorneys scale their firms, gain freedom, and take back their time.
Staffing. Okay, we're talking about
It's back.
it's back and it's constant. But trying to come up with a plan for how to hire the right roles at the right time is literally both a dream and a nightmare for me at the same time, because I'm constantly trying to figure out, how do we know where to go next? How do we decide who's the most important person at our firm now that we need to duplicate? Or how do we decide what roles we need to fill? I know that this is such a huge part of the conversations you have with your clients on a daily basis, Alay.
Yeah, and it's really funny that it ended up working out that way because when I started my coaching business and working with law firms, it was really focused on the business development and marketing aspects of law firm growth. And what I figured out pretty quickly is that attorneys are actually pretty good at business development and marketing, and that's not the biggest challenge. The challenge is when they get full with clients, now they got to start hiring people. And that is a real difficult problem to solve
Mhm.
because they're dealing with, it's a highly technical role. So the people need to be well qualified. It's hard to figure that out during an interview. These people are well paid. So there's a lot of financial risk that goes into making that first hire. And so attorneys can get a little gun shy about, do I hire now or not, especially if they've had a bad experience. And then there's the training involved of getting this person up to speed. And if they don't get up to speed and you have to let them go, oh my gosh, wasted time, wasted money. And that's just your first hire. And like you said, Chelsea, it's kind of on repeat after that because you're always in hiring mode once you start. And so it's an area where I spend a lot of time with my clients.
So I feel like the best place to start is to help law firm owners identify, what are those early warning signs that your current team can't support your workload? What should law firm owners be looking for?
Yeah, and this is where it's great for law firm owners to be a little selfish. Totally fine. Because as the owner of the firm, you are the tip of the spear. You're also where the buck stops. And so problems in the firm are going to percolate up to you very quickly, and you're going to see that. So, one sign you can that clearly says you need to go hire somebody is you are busy. You're working 40 hours a week plus. You don't feel like you're getting everything done. Um, Maybe you're not meeting your client obligations as much as you would like. Maybe you're not marketing and getting out there and attending the events and having the meetings that you should for business development. Or maybe you're neglecting aspects of running your firm that you wish you could. Whatever's going on, you're feeling a lot of time pressure. You're feeling like you might be out of time. That's one. The other one is because your team is stretched, they're going to start dropping the ball. And so mistakes will happen, things won't get done on time. You'll start to see problems in how your firm is working with your clients. And no law firm owner likes to be involved in that and likes to identify those things. If you're seeing those things starting where they weren't there before, it could be a sign that your law firm is at capacity or parts of your law firm are at capacity. And the third one, of course, is just by checking in with your team. You're going to see people be stressed. You're going to see people be burned out. You might see people leave your firm. Those are all signs that your team is really stretched thin.
Yeah, and I definitely agree, because in my mind, the first place we've noticed, okay, it's time, is I'm working too much, because I
Yes.
feel it the most, right? You should instantly feel that difference of when, okay, your work day is going after 5. Like maybe it's only 5:15, 5:30, but it's consistently after because you just can't get those last couple things done. Or you're stressed about the week, so Sunday night you're jumping on your computer and checking a couple things and getting ahead. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be, oh my God, you're working 70 hours a week, but you'll start to notice it in places. Then if you're working more, if you're feeling it, I'm going to generalize, but I can almost guarantee your staff is, right? Because if you're having to pick it up, they're having to pick it up somewhere else as well. So I agree. And having these conversations with yourself and your staff often lead me to kind of my second question for you, but is how to take kind of the guesswork out of where to start, right? What's the next role you need? Taking the guesswork out of it is looking at these specific things, at least in my mind, looking at the work that you're doing, looking at the work that your team can't keep up with, and where those priorities should be. So, what kind of, I don't know, exercises or formulas do you use to help your law firm owners find exactly what their firm needs, not what some other firm might need at the time?
Yeah, yeah, I'm grinning because we literally went through a lot of this stuff not too long ago. So I've talked about the 20-10-5 rule on the law on this podcast. I'm not going to go into it again, but there is another tool that we use called the Law Firm Blueprint, and what that is really designed to do is it looks at the capacity of your firm to take on work now and how much revenue and income that's going to produce for you. And then we think about, okay, well, where do you want your firm to go as far as revenue and income, and work backwards and then kind of figure out the pieces. So if we're at two attorneys now, maybe we ultimately want to get to five. And if we're at, five paralegals now, maybe we want to get to 10. And understanding that where you want to grow can help you figure out what you need, if you want to be proactive. And if you're being reactive, it's actually a lot simpler. You just need to identify who's billing a ton of hours. And if you do flat fee work, who's working a ton of hours, because that is usually the role that you're going to need to address on a reactive basis. So if your attorneys are stretched more than your paralegals, that may be where your next hire needs to go. If your paralegals are, burning out and bailing out, then that's clearly the next area that needs to be addressed. And so that's kind of slapping a band-aid on the problem, doing triage. We much prefer to be proactive and monitor the billings and the work, the client work that is being done. And when it starts to approach that level of, okay, we can see this person's maxed, that person's maxed, that person, we're all maxed. We need to hire somebody before it gets too out of control. Then you can start to move forward that process, because, it takes months to hire the right person.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is funny because I just had my blueprint up this morning, running some numbers and looking at different places as we're hiring, these next two people for our firm. We're bringing in another associate. We're bringing in a new receptionist, promoting our lovely receptionist into a law clerk role, and moving some things around simply because our attorneys are at capacity. And for us, attorneys are just most profitable. I know a lot of law firms who have a lot of law clerks or paralegals, and that's really how they function, and that may be good for them. Yes, it's not as expensive because payroll's less, you don't have malpractice insurance, MCLE, continuing education credits, and there's some expense there that you're saving. But from a profitability standpoint, that's in our mind where we've seen the most growth. So for us, that's the first role we're going to consider when we're at full capacity. But that's not, again, just like you said, it depends on your individual players and where they are. And the other thing is sometimes I think, right, based on that, the next hire should be, oh, maybe we need somebody to do operations or HR, and trying to figure out, is that actually a need now or should that come later? And so, not only just from an assessment of, is anybody overworked, or, where are your cost centers versus your profit players, but how do the conversations go when you're really trying to get from your clients? You're really trying to pull out their needs. What kind of things are you looking for to say, I don't know that you really need that person right now, and here's why, based on what you said? So can you kind of walk me through some of these conversations that you have?
Sure. And kind of going into this, one thing that you all should know is that I'm biased towards not hiring. My background is largely from startups, and the rule in startups is you want to conserve your cash. And so you generally don't, like, we wouldn't hire people unless we absolutely have had to. And so that's my bias. And
Mhm.
so uh, you mentioned, Chelsea, profit centers and cost centers. In case you're listening, you're not familiar with the term, profit center is someone who generates money for the firm. Cost center is someone who costs the firm money. So an attorney is a profit center. an HR professional is a cost center. Both can be absolutely necessary.
Mhm.
Um, Profit centers are what we just talked about. It's kind of self-evident and pretty easy. The one that we end up having conversations about with my clients is typically around hiring a cost center, because that's going to cost the firm money. If you're hiring an operations manager or you're hiring an HR manager, someone like that, or like thinking maybe you should go hire an IT person full time in your firm, these are the things that are going to cost your firm money. And that's where the conversations really start about, one, can you really afford this role? Two, you're aware you're making a long-term investment, so you're sacrificing short-term profit in the expectation that the firm performance is going to improve, so that that person long term is going to be worth that investment. And typically the way the firm improves is it frees up your profit centers to do more work. And IT is a great example. So if you're wondering, oh, I don't know if I need an IT person or not, think about how much time your attorneys and your paralegals are spending on IT. If they're spending a lot of time working on their computer or dealing with computer problems or dealing with slow computers or software that doesn't work for them, there's a lot of billable hours that are getting sucked up into that. And an IT person actually pays for themselves pretty fast. And so that's kind of the conversation that we have, Chelsea. And, the outcome kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah, and e every firm in the way that they run their work through the various employees they have is often unique, but there are a lot of overlap. And so, we just had the conversation about for our firm about moving around some of the workload to law clerks and paralegal at a much more cost-effective rate for the clients to free up the associates to go to court more, to be available for the legal questions because we are at such capacity that I've got some, you know, multi-year, 3-4 year experience family law attorney drafting, a petition for dissolution, right? Where that's not something they need to be spending time on. It's expensive for them to do that for the client. And if they weren't doing that, they'd have more capacity for other work. So sometimes shifting the roles around too from somebody who might be a cost center. Now, even paralegals and law clerks are going to generally make you money, but it just depends, not necessarily as much. You're going to still be making much more money for your firm overall and being able to provide the services at a quality that you want. So it's shifting around work sometimes in a more cost effective way for the client can actually maximize your profit. Not you're saving that one client some money, but you're able to help so many more people. And I think if you can, a lot of law firm owners just need to get their head around how to maximize the client experience sometimes because it will end up benefiting you. At least that's been my experience substantially.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things for people to wrap their heads around, not just law firm owners, but any kind of business owner. It's kind of the art of growing a business is, how do you make these really targeted investments? How do you justify them? How do you time it right? And then how do you make the right ones at the right time so that you maximize your profit? And that's where, I love those conversations with my clients. It's a ton of fun, and every situation is different. Every outcome usually is going to be a little bit different. And so it's great getting into that. In fact, you're just having something similar with your intake specialist, right? We talked about how technically she's a cost center, but really all the clients come through her. And so she really is making the firm a lot of money when you think about it in that
Yeah.
context. And that's part of investing in your business.
Exactly. And that translates to having more work for the lawyers to do more billables. And so there are just some roles where they're worth the money and they're taking things off your plate, making your life easier. But I would agree that it's just making sure it's the right move at the right time. We tend to go for the lawyer position first and then the support role for admin because the lawyer is going to instantly make us money. The amount that they have to bill in order to cover their expense and make you profit is pretty low. And yes, there's some risk at the beginning because payroll is a lot of money. But if you've set your firm up for success and health, you're going to have the cash flow available to do it. We have done that for ourselves. So, worst case scenario, we've got a negative, on a new attorney, which we've never had ever in the last 8 years. But let's say we've got we're set up. We have cash in our bank and we have a HELOC to pull, or a credit line if we have to pull from, if we need it. And that's just what you do, take the risk sometimes to grow. And so this kind of takes me to my other point is really maybe give me one or two of the biggest mistakes you think you see law firms make, when they're adding new team members, either the choices they're making or how they're bringing in these team members.
The biggest mistakes. Well, the big one, which I mentioned in my book, a quick plug for my book, "Staffing Up: The Attorney's Guide to Hiring Top Talent." But the big mistake that I see all the time is they wait too long
Yeah.
to make that hire. And so what ends up happening is they are way, way over max on their workload, super stressed out. They need to make a hire and it's a desperation hire. They're just looking for a warm body that they can throw in and just give them some help. The problem is, not only are they under a lot of pressure to hire now, but they also don't have the time to train the person, bring them in right, provide them all of the attention and support that they need for that employee to be successful. And this just kind of ends up being a vicious cycle. They bring somebody in, they don't have the time, or they don't pick the right person, or both. That person then ends up leaving. They bring in somebody else, and then they're calling me and they're saying, "Well, I can't keep anyone. I've gone through 5 paralegals and 4 attorneys, and no one stays at the firm. What's wrong with these people? I'm working 80 hours a week." you know, and that's the issue. So that's the number one thing. The number two, which is a close second, is that they hire for the least expensive person who they can find, and usually it's going to be their first hire. And this is so ironic because it's tempting to hire that person who is going to be cheap, but when you're just hiring the first hire or the second hire, that is when you need the experience because they're going to be able to ramp up faster. They're going to be able to take more work off of you. The ROI, the payback on them is going to be so much better. So hiring a strong first or second person is way more important than hiring a cheap one. And unfortunately, a lot of attorneys, when they're starting off with their first or second hire, they go for the cheap route and then they end up paying the price over months.
Yeah. I love, I think the first point you make really resonates with me as a law firm owner. And I feel like one of the reasons why we're hiring another attorney right now, where we just hired one like 4 months ago, who's not quite at full capacity, but we know we're so close. And she's going to be at full capacity any day now. And we're going to be right back to where we were when we were trying to hire her. We have a demand, we've got to fill it. We're setting ourselves up to do it. It's scary, but if we don't do it now, we're going to regret it later. It's going to fall back on me. I'm going to be missing dinners with my family. I'm going to be, losing sleep because I'm trying to play catch up, filling all the roles that we could have hired somebody to do. So that one really, I think, is the number one thing that we look to, when it comes to, is it time now or should we wait? More often than not, it's scary to do it now when you feel like you don't have the work for them. It always works itself out, at least for us. Maybe it's just because I trust the process, LA, right? Who knows?
Well, no,
But
it's not just that. That's part of it. But you also spend a lot of time and effort focused on making that right hire.
yeah.
The other thing that you have is you've had a situation where, because of how you market yourselves and the kind of firm that you've built, you have more demand than you have supply. So you can be a little choosy about your clients,
Yeah.
and you can also hire with confidence, knowing that if you want to open that funnel wider, you can bring in more clients to fill that role. Not every firm has that luxury, but that's not an accident. That's how you've built your firm.
Yeah, I mean, you're right in the sense that if I could hire 5 attorneys right now and fill their plates, it would take a little bit of the ramp up, right? Getting all the clients on board and all of that. But their plates would be filled by the end of the year if that was the right choice for us. We choose to do it a little bit more protectively, bring people in one at a time, get them onboarded, make sure they're confident. They've got access to us. They have everything they need to be successful. And when they're ready to go, on to the next hire. And sometimes getting that clarity really requires talking it out like this, finding somebody that's going to help you figure it out. So if you need help clarifying which roles your firm needs next and creating a smart hiring practice for your firm, you can book a strategy call on our website, lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. If this episode sparked new ideas, please like, subscribe, and share it with a lawyer who might need it. We love hearing how you're building your lawyer boss life.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.